The first time I heard about Harold was on a Sunday evening when a friend of mine called me. She was at the horse farm that we both work at, doing night check, and there was a cow there. The police were on their way because apparently this cow was a habitual runaway. That night, the cow ended up running off and I thought the story was over. About a month later, I received a picture from my boss of an adolescent cow standing in a field with 2 horses. That cow is now known as Harold. When Harold was just 3 months old, he escaped from a local farm where his fate was to be slaughtered for meat before reaching his 2nd birthday. After being on the loose for 3 months, he wandered onto a horse farm in Lebanon, New Jersey. He broke into a field and chose to reside with the 2 horses living there. The horse farm is leased out by my employer, Redfield Training, LLC. The farm owners were desperate to get Harold back to their farm, but no matter how hard or how many times they tried, they could not catch him. After all of his efforts, I knew that Harold deserved to have the best life he could. I wish that I could help every animal in need, but for Harold, I actually got the chance. I reached out to 7 different farm animal sanctuaries in the tri-state area. Within hours, I got a response from Tamerlane Sanctuary. I explained Harold's situation, and Gabrielle, a Tamerlane founder, thought that he would be a perfect fit for her sanctuary. A few days later, she and 2 other staff members came to meet Harold and assess the situation. It was clear that this was not going to be easy. He was very frightened of people and loose in the woods. The cow's original owner was notified that people were looking at her cow and came to talk to us. Gabrielle was able to convince her that the best thing to do was release the cow to the sanctuary. That same day, his paperwork was signed over to them, and his future was drastically looking up. We discovered that Harold has a sweet tooth for grain, so I began working with him every day, slowly but surely gaining his trust. We realized that the easiest way to get him on the trailer would be to bring him into the barn and pull the trailer right up to the door. I began teaching him to follow me by placing down a bucket of grain and stepping away to let him eat, then moving it farther and farther in the direction I wanted him to go.
Cause you're a sky full of stars. I'm gonna give you my heart. Cause you're a sky full of stars. Cause you light up the path.
Within days, he caught on and was walking with me as I held the bucket. Within a week, I was petting him. Even though he spent his nights in the field with his 2 horse friends, the plastic fencing could not contain him. When the horses were inside during the day, Harold would go where he pleased. I have found him deep in the woods, grazing by the pond at the back of the property, sleeping in vacant sheds, in other fenced paddocks, and standing right in the driveway. Every day I was able to lure him closer and closer to the barn.
I don't care, go on and tear me apart. I don't care if you do. 'Cause in the sky full of stars, I think I saw you. get lighter, the more it gets dark. I'm gonna give you my heart.
Soon enough, Harold was taking his first steps into the barn. I realized that the easiest way to catch him would be to walk him into a stall that opened directly from the outside of the barn. That way I could lock him in a smaller space, making it easier to get him onto the trailer. He was quite wary of it, but he was continuing to trust me more and more. He began to look forward to my visits and would walk over to me. Sometimes he would even stand outside the barn, waiting for me to work with him.
I don't care, go on and tear me apart. I don't care if you do. 'Cause in a sky full of stars, I think I see.
It was now winter, and my deadline to catch Harold was fastly approaching. If I wasn't able to lock him in by the end of the week, we were going to have to explore other options of catching him. Each day, he stepped a little bit further into the stall until finally all 4 legs were inside. Unfortunately, when the time came to actually lock him in the stall, he was too suspicious and I was unsuccessful. Instead, I was able to put a harness on him and corner him behind a shed in a paddock. They backed the trailer up and we tried to get him on, but in the end he wriggled himself out of the harness and broke free. My next idea was to lure him into a dog pen that we had. I was able to get him in there, but it was clearly not sturdy enough to hold him for a long period of time. Tamerlane decided to rent a trailer for several days so that they could leave it with us, in case I could lure him onto the trailer or back into the pen and then onto the trailer. Unfortunately, Harold outsmarted me once again. He would get very close, but then walk away and look back at me, trying to get me to bring him more grain. The trailer had to be brought back empty once again. I was beginning to feel discouraged, but I knew I couldn't give up. I built a pen out of spare gates and lead ropes that I thought would be secure enough to keep him inside. However, when I put him in there, he broke out within 10 minutes and fled into the woods. After this stressful situation, I wanted to give him a break, so I did not go see him the next day. The following day, I arrived at the barn around 1 o'clock and found him laying down in the pen with the gate closed. He seemed totally content. I found out that he was sleeping there at 7 a.m. when one of the guys that cares for the horses crept over and closed the gate. Even though Harold had broken out of this pen once before, this time he was totally relaxed. Immediately I messaged Gabrielle and found out that they would be able to come with the trailer the next morning, so I had to keep him in there. I made sure he had plenty of hay and water, then literally barricaded him in there. I used every extra gate, rope, and piece of wood that I could find to make the pen secure, and thankfully he was still there in the morning. The Tamerlane Sanctuary staff and the Redfield training staff all came together to make sure that Harold got on the trailer. I was able to put a halter and a lasso on him, and together we were able to coax him onto the trailer. Later that day, Gabrielle sent me this video of him meeting the other cows. The next day, I was able to go visit him. He already had a best friend named Dexter, and I could tell that he would flourish in his new environment.
So sky,
Although Harold will go on to live a happy and peaceful life, millions of animals are still experiencing excessive suffering every day in the factory farming industry. Factory farms are massive and industrialized facilities housing thousands of animals in warehouses for the sole purpose of producing dairy, egg, and meat products. Many animals are kept in enclosures so small they cannot turn around or even stand up properly. Chickens in the egg industry are often starved for 21 days straight. This makes them lose a substantial amount of weight and forces hens to molt, meaning they lose their feathers and stop laying eggs for 3 weeks. The only reason for this is because once they begin eating again, their egg production will go up in amount and size. In her piece, Corporate Cruelty, Holding Factory Farms Accountable for Animal Cruelty Crimes to Encourage Systemic Reform, Mary Mares defines 2 types of animal cruelty within factory farming: systemic cruelty and egregious cruelty. Systemic cruelty is the day-to-day pain and suffering the animals endure, and egregious cruelty is specific actions that individuals make causing pain and suffering. These animals are living, breathing beings that have emotions and feel pain. Just like Harold, they all deserve better. Tamerlane Sanctuary is a non-profit organization dedicated to rescuing abused animals and preserving land.